Look at all the scenic beauty of the Hudson Valley. You can see Mount Beacon, the Hudson River, some trees and grass and stuff. And 2 awesome mountain bikes too. That's a tall boy, isn't it? I want to start with this Peugeot though. I actually paid $50 for this thing at the flea market. Time will tell if I made a mistake there. This thing has a fully lugged triangle handlebar junction at the stem. See on the Ross, it's not fully lugged, it's like lugged and tigged. Kind of a weird detail to point out, I admit it. I don't know where the Orient Express lined up in Peugeot's lineup for the year this bike was made, whatever year that was, but looks like a pretty decent bike. It's got these Araya 7X rims, which are straight out of BMX, except these are 26 inches. These are really good rims. And we used to call these Suzy hubs, but they're not. They're Suzue sealed tech hubs. These are pretty good hubs, I think. Not quite sealed bearing, but sealed tech is close enough. And while we're on the subject of commonly mispronounced Japanese stuff, this bike has Tange tubing. And it's made in Japan. That's impressive, because Peugeot is a French company. And here's one half of the front Shimano brake. The other half is on the other side of the wheel. I'm not saying I'm too lazy to move the camera over there, but what's the point? I don't know if I could really pick out a favorite part of this bike, because the whole thing is my favorite, but this cast fork crown, it's pretty close to the top. This thing is gnarly. And then of course you have the little Peugeot lion thing and some stripes. Just awesome. It's a little bit obscured by the brake cables, but you have a Peugeot logo on the head tube, the lugged head tube, and a locking headset, which is pretty cool. People on Craigslist ask me, how many speeds does this bike have? And I say, enough. And this old school thumb shifter shifts through the speeds. And the Shimano adjustable grip brake levers brings you to a stop in a hurry. Do an endo, it's fun. In case I didn't mention it before, this bike is called the Peugeot Orient Express. And in case you can't decide how tall you are, there's a Suntour quick release on the seat post so you can raise and lower that. It's good stuff. And speaking of brake routing, which I know we weren't, but just in case we were, look at the cool brake routing coming from these handlebars. This bike came from Wheel and Heel in Fishkill, New York. I don't know if they're there anymore, but I think they're in downtown Wappingers Falls, the village. So go check them out. They're really nice people. Now, just in case this Japanese-French bike didn't already have enough Japanese stuff on it, here's some more Japanese stuff. These Sakai Rinyo, i.e. SR SP 452 pedals, which were kind of popular on freestyle bikes later, but I think this bike beat them to the punch. So for cranking, you have the Tourney GS crank by Takagi, I think. And for shifting, you have the Shimano derailleur by Shimano, I'm pretty sure. And out back, for some reason, the chain is really slack, and that's pretty whack, but you still have a Shimano derailleur and a bunch of gears, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which makes this an 18-speed bike. I don't know if you're going to be able to read this, or if you even can read, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. The tire says Swallow Mountaineer on the side of it, so I guess these tires were named after a crevice on Mount Everest. Out back you have some Suntour dropouts, and they're fully equipped with braze-ons, so you can install a rack, which somebody has already done. Let's take a look at that. And here it is, a nice dramatic shot of the Veta aluminum rack. And if this shot is in focus, I'll pee my pants. Not literally, but I'll be really, really surprised. This is totally gonna be out of focus. I'm sorry. Now the next question, I guess, is should you be insecure if your frame decal only says 4130 and doesn't say Tange? I don't know, maybe, but I don't think this Ross really has any reason to be insecure. Seriously, a bike's gotta be pretty badass if it has its own name stamped into the brake levers. And someone put on fancy SE Bikes grips, which are way better than whatever was on here originally, I think. Plus those brake levers are attached to some pretty sweet cantilever brakes. Maybe not quite as sweet as the Shimano's on the Peugeot, but come on, this bike wasn't as expensive as the Peugeot. And speaking of the Peugeot and its fancy fork crown, I don't know what you call the fork crown on this Ross, but I am in love with it. It's just a weird looking thing. It's like a lug, but it's sort of a curvy, space age, form-fitting. Man, it's gorgeous. This bike is called the Ross High Tech, and just like the Peugeot, it has a high-tech locking headset. I guess those were really fab in the 80s. And here's the obligatory bar end view, which I'm obliged to show you because it's obligatory, like I just said. And it shows off the high-tech brake levers and the thumb shifters and the bar end caps. Just in case you spill the bike, you don't rip up your SE grips. That's pretty cool. Now over here we have the Ross vinyl seat, which has a little logo in the front of it and one on the back of it, and I'll show you those in a moment. And you can also see the lugged frame, and they're not fancy lugs, but they're lugs. Lugs are better than no lugs. Here's that weird little Ross logo on the seat. I guess it's an R, but it kind of looks like a rattlesnake. And here's that Ross logo on the back of the seat. It's well worn. I don't know, how does your seat get worn on the back? Ross is out of Allentown, Pennsylvania. And if you don't believe me, ask Billy Joel. He'll tell you all about Allentown. But the front hub is a Maillard, which is out of France. Kind of weird. And to get even more weird, they totally flipped the script out back and put a Chosen rear hub, which is disc brake ready. Imagine this thing with disc brakes on it. Those flimsy little dropouts. That's not going to work out too well. Now, laced up to that back hub, you have an Alex X rim, and it's black, and it kind of makes the whole bike look badass. Here, check it out. I mean, seriously, look at this thing. It's huge. It's gnarly. I mean, if you're riding down the street on this Ross, nobody's going to call you a pussy, even if you are one. Now, everybody knows diversity is our strength, so if things weren't multicultural enough on this bike that was made in Allentown and has a French front hub, the rim is a Weinmann, 26-inch, made in Belgium. And in case you're worried about losing your front wheel, you don't really have to worry about that because it's got these crazy locking washer things. And look, the pedals are Sing Ta, which are made in Taiwan, and they're a total ripoff of the Shimano DX, which was made in Japan. This bike is so global. And while we're talking about the land of Pokemon and the Shinkansen bullet train, the cranks are SR, custom, made in Japan, and the front derailleur, Shimano, made in Japan. And you guessed it, the rear derailleur, Shimano, made in Japan. And this bike has a whopping, God, I think it's got 10 speeds on it. That's crazy. Now, in case you care about this kind of thing, the serial number is right there. It ends in 2512. I can't quite make out the first three numbers. Also, I don't know why, but there's a patent number on the lower head tube lug. Weird. And I'm not exactly an FBI agent like John Hamm in the movie The Town, which I watched last night, but I think I can make out this sticker, and I think it says Mount St. Helens, which is, pretty good bike. Now here's another example of how tall this bike is. Just look at how much room there is between the seat post clamp and the rear brake. And while we're talking about the rear brake, check out how this doesn't have a normal little saddle junction. It's got a cool roller thing. I like that. And how complete would a bike review? Is this a bike review? A bike video be if I didn't show you the rear brake cable routing? And there it is in all its glory. So there's your Ross Mount St. Helens mountain bike. And together with its smaller, although slightly more well-equipped little brother, the Peugeot Orient Express, I think we got two really, really cool vintage mountain bikes here in the city of Newburgh on a beautiful sunny day in March 2019. Thanks for watching.